Hi everyone, it's Leigh with Arts Council OKC Creative Aging Program, and today we're going to do simple soft pastel landscapes. So the materials you're going to need are soft pastels, construction paper, and paper towels are optional. That's just so you can dust your fingers off. So, and these are just, regular soft pastels. They're inexpensive. And then this size construction paper is 12 by 18, but then you can also get just a 9 by 12 regular size construction paper, because this is a great way to start learning how to do soft pastels without the major expense of expensive soft pastels and more expensive pastel paper. So this is just kind of to give you an introduction. And then also remember, just because it is simple, because this is totally doable, but simple does not mean it doesn't take time, because of course art takes time, but you can totally do this. So, all right, let's get started. So there are lots of different ways of doing, soft pastel landscape. The ones that, I'm going to do today really is a little more stylized, sort of realistic, but a good way to get started so you don't have to feel like you have to be perfect. Now there's, this is another one that is a little more abstract, a lot of bright colors. So really whatever you feel drawn to. So and then also we're going to use black paper, because you can use black paper and have any kind of landscape. Now it also is a little more dynamic, kind of shows a little detail if you want to have a lot of darks in it. Now this one that I did is actually on light blue paper, so that, even though there's pastel over everything, if you're going to have a specific color throughout, then you can choose a paper accordingly, as far as color of construction paper. Now, but just to be aware, like yellows and pinks and some of the orange, this is just in construction paper. They don't tend to seem to work as well. I don't know if it's the coloring of the paper, but so just take that into account. And really, this is just to experiment, because we're just using construction paper instead of more expensive soft pastel or charcoal paper that has a bit of a tooth. So I'm gonna talk you through this one, and just because this is actually really pretty simple, and then I'll start another one here in just a minute that you can kind of see how it's laid out. But if there is a horizon line in here, you can take your soft pastel sideways and just kind of draw it across to kind of give you the horizon line. And you take a lighter color just so you can see it. It can be any color, it doesn't have to be white. And then since I knew I wanted water in this one, then I just took my pastel and kind of did just a soft shoreline. Okay, still totally doable. And then if you want to, you can kind of mark where you want some of your trees to be. Okay, and then you can have some in here. And take in consideration too what the water is like. If it's going to be still, you can do the colors like, horizontally. And then the tool your blending tool today is your finger, or your fingers. And then the reason why, and then so also directionally, how I want the water to look is how I'm going to drag my finger across. Okay. And then you can also add more darks. Now this, I'm just kind of showing you how I was laying down some of the color in the water, because, even though it has blue paper underneath, you still want to have a lot of different colors going in here. Okay, I just kind of wanted to show you. And then if you think, oh, that's a little too heavy, then we're going to come back on top and just, this is one that I kind of finished, but I just wanted to kind of show you how lay down some of the color. Okay, and so you have a lot of blending underneath. Now these, at the end when you're adding your detail, you can take kind of the corner of the pastel and bring it up to do more details that you're going to leave in there, and then you don't blend. You know, there's a lot of blending underneath, but in this case, these really, you know, bright, vibrant blades of grass, I didn't blend because, as you can see, they have the nice distinct shapes still, because you don't want to keep, you want all your details to not be blended in, okay? And then what I would suggest, so now for the actual one we're doing, I'm going to do this on black paper. Yeah, and you can see my fingerprints. So what I like to do is have just paper towel on hand. Now, this doesn't really matter because we'd be covering this up anyway, but for your fingers, you can wipe them off with a dry paper towel throughout the process, because you definitely don't want to use anything wet, because that will ruin your image. So, and then what I suggest too is first, you know, you can pull out the colors that you want to use, you know, like if you want to use multiple greens and some blues. I like to go ahead and get them out so that they're easy to pop out. So, and this one, okay, we do have kind of a horizon line, but it doesn't have to be straight, so I'm going to cover over it anyway. So I'm just going to kind of use this back here. That's going to be a little bit higher, so it's going to have some rolling hills back here. But then I also want to have a hill up front and some kind of trees in here. Woo. And maybe some mountains in the background. Now this looks very, you know, loosey-goosey, which is totally how it's supposed to look. It just kind of gives you a setup, and this looks really strange. And the great thing about soft pastels is that you can change this as you go, and there's no need for an eraser. You can just use your fingers and change how you want it to look. So, you know, you can make it. And, okay, so, and then if you want to have some shrubs kind of over here. But this is just, like I said, giving me placement. And so you're going to use, now you can do a lot of, if you want to add layers of color underneath, like if you know this is going to be kind of a green hill. And, you know, pastels are actually a type of painting because you're blending color as you're going. So you're going to use more than one green or blue or anything to fill, to even add in your background color. And so then you can kind of blend them in. And this is just to kind of give you an underpainting so you have a base of color. Okay. Now granted, you can do this, you can do it like this. You can also add in darks, and if you want to have a lot of the paper showing, just layer it in a way like this. So this is still considered your underpainting, and you're adding layers of color, but you're not blending them as much. So just kind of experiment and see what you think. Let's see, here we go. But see, I'm just kind of adding all these different colors. Yeah, and let's see. And you know, this, like I said, this doesn't have, you can have a really strange stylized landscape. That's kind of how I end up doing a lot of stuff. But, and so just kind of see what, and then too, you know, you can take your fingers and use directional lines, like if this is going to be grass kind of growing on this hill. So, but you can kind of get the idea, and so this pasture may have wildflowers down here, so you want to kind of add some blues, and also like if you want kind of bluish mountains, but you kind of want whiter sky. We're gonna, oop, you can't see that. We're gonna come in here. And then also be aware of how you're blending this in. Like, you want it to be softer, kind of more cloud-like, then do some long circular motions. And then even with your blending in your fingers, using this circular motion. Okay. And then you can stand it up and tap it down. Now remember not to kind of put your hand all the way across it, or you're gonna drag things off. So let's see if we're gonna have a lighter yellow in here. And like I said, this is still all of your underpainting, because this is the field, the valley in the background. Okay, and so I want some of these trees to kind of be in here. So, you know, your pastel image is going to look kind of strange for a while, as a lot of this stuff does when you're doing any of your under paintings, you know. So I want to have some bushes kind of carry along down here, and then add some blue in here. And some more yellow. Because you just want to kind of blend a bunch of different colors here. And you can have hot pink bushes or anything that anything that you like. So just kind of experiment and see. And then, as always, when doing soft pastels, embrace the mess. And the great thing about soft pastels is it will easily come out of your clothing and it washes out. You just get it on your hands. So some people don't like that a whole lot, but just don't, just use your paper towel and dust off your fingers if it really bothers you, but you're going to be getting messy the whole time, so you might as well just embrace it and keep going. Okay, so, and then let's add, we're going to add some other colors in here for the possible mountain range. And if you get in here and you add some different shades for the mountains and you don't like it, then you can totally change it to something else. And you can also change stuff to like a tree line in the distance. But, you can see I'm just kind of really doing this really pretty quickly. Just so that you can kind of get an idea of how I'm laying in the colors, and just to kind of get something underneath. And then you'll still be, and then if you want this to be more like a tree line, then you can kind of come in with this color, and you can kind of bring this back down in here, and then so you're kind of creating some tree shapes just with the color that's actually behind the tree line. And like I said, there is really, you don't have to do this in a specific way. I mean, as far as perfection, making your tree shapes exact. Okay, because this is, far in the distance anyway. But you kind of, and then if your tree is going to kind of start looking like mountains, it's all right too. But we're going to add some more blues in here. So, and then you can you can go in and refine your tree line too. You can kind of, but this just takes a lot of building up of color, but I'm trying to do this kind of quickly, just show you how, layering in all these different colors as a underpainting to kind of get you started so you have all of your basic shapes in here. And so this is kind of, it looks like kind of like an overcast day a little bit. So we can add some cream. And then remember, since pastels are a type of painting that if, you know, when you're blending colors, you know, yellow and blue make green. So if you use a cream on top of a light blue, it's kind of give it a little bit of a green tinge, and you probably don't want to do that. Or if you bump up against something, then it will kind of blend accordingly. So just be aware of that. But see, we're, you know, just because we started out with black paper, you're really not going to notice it because we're covering it up a lot, unless there's certain areas that you want to keep darker. But so having a, you know, a black undercolor is kind of helpful as far as the paper, you know, because then that way it really kind of makes the colors, you know, more vibrant. So anyway, and since this is kind of more of a stylized image, then that works. So yeah. Oops. Hello. That's not what I thought I was picking up. So you just kind of blend it back in, like I said. And then, you know, so we'll just keep going. And then experiment with how you hold the pastel. You don't want to wear yourself out. You know, let it work with you. Okay, and now I'm just going to tap this off. I have a piece of masonite under here, so I'm just tapping it off here so that way it kind of dusts it off without me running my hand across it. Okay. So I think I'm kind of gonna bring some clouds down in here. You know, so if you decide, okay, well, I don't really want mountains back there, or I want to change it, you know, or maybe I do, but I want to change the look of it, then you can kind of blend it out and then add something else. So okay, now this up here, I want to have like some kind of wildflowers, but I also want to add a few more details in here in the bushes. So we'll get some browns or some darks, you know, because you have every color under the sun in here. Yeah. And so you're still going to kind of, ooh. And see, just by adding little bits, this is giving some nice visual texture. And then if you want to keep it a little more distinct, then don't blend it so much, or you can even just tap it gently with your fingers so it blends a little bit, but not totally blending it in. So that kind of gives a little different kind of detail. And let's see, what we got? And so I'm just wanting to get some of the colors down here before I start going back on top of things with details. So like say this is, you've got some wildflowers down in the valley, but I want to add some more greens underneath, so. Okay, add some creams. Okay. Yeah, but you can see this is really kind of a very loose landscape, but it's kind of good to see different ways of doing it. And the, you know, the other one that I showed you earlier kind of starts out like this too. This is just a little brighter. So, okay, we're gonna keep working on it. Now remember, when you have pastels on your fingers, you know, and your face itches, you know, you're gonna wipe it on your face. So just be aware. All right. And so I'm going to wipe my fingers off here just a minute. Paper towel. All right. Okay. And then, okay, I'm still kind of do this circular motion here. And then if you think this is a bit extreme, contrast for the rest, we're just going to blend this in a little bit. Okay. All right, but then, and then what we're going to do is, so you can start adding. So since this is in the foreground, you're going to have, things are going to be bigger here. So same kind of thing, we're going to add, and then you can have little, little bits of color for different flowers. So, and this doesn't have to, you can just do like little lines. And if you're more comfortable doing some color and then having, a stem come from it this way, that's fine. Or you can do, grass coming up or down, just whatever works best for you. And like I said, this is just, wildflowers, and you can put in some color here. And it's going to overlap in the front here. So I'm just kind of, anything goes, like whatever colors you want. And you can have some big white, big white flowers and things. And so you're going to, these are just floating because then I'll put stuff down here. But you see, you get the idea. Now, like I said, this is a lot more stylized and things, but then you have the dark from the paper coming through, which is nice, even though we're still going to add more darks. But I did a few of these on top where we're still going to do some blending underneath. So this is kind of your under layer of flowers, because we're still going to kind of add some more background color and then come back and add more flowers and grass and more detail on top. So, but you kind of get the idea. So I'll do a little bit and then come back in and talk to you about it a little bit more. Okay, you can see that I've continued to add layers and layers and layers, and like I said, this is not a fast process. This is simple, totally doable. You will get messy, but some of you will be much tidier than I am because I managed to get stuff everywhere. And if you really need to, if you get a lot of pastel on your hand and to where it's infringing on what you're blending or putting down, then go wash your hands, but make sure that they're totally dry. So what I've, as I've shown you, I went in here and added some blacks, but then I added some brown on top and some different browns, and then on going back in here to these bushes, I added a little bits of more kind of detail. And then on the grass, I've continued to go over it multiple times with long strokes and short strokes as grass is. And then you can also bring your finger in if you think some of it's a little too distinct, because if you're still, working on the stuff underneath, but then be aware that when you're putting your fingers on your paper to hold it in place, you can leave a fingerprint. So just, be aware, but part of that is just the process of it. So I'm still going to add some darks in here, and then you can blend it in. And there's lots of, blue undertones and And then also I recommend getting up and stepping away from it, holding it up away from yourself, or even just standing up above it, because this gives you a different kind of perspective. Now this is, like I said, this is definitely a little more stylized kind of landscape, but I just wanted to show you all that this is totally doable. You know, it is simple, it takes time, but you know, anyone can do this. There's just lots of layers of pastel and building up, you know, and like I changed my mind up here as far as mountains and the tree line, but I changed it, and then I went in, you know, because sometimes when things get too blended in, you lose your edges. So I just went in with the white here and just did really small, heavy circles of white to kind of get in and change the silhouette of the mountains. Okay, and so I'm actually going to leave the white really pretty distinct, because that, I like how that looks, and you get to decide. So it kind of looks like it's glowing a little bit. You can even add, you know, pink up there if, oops, sorry, my arm in the way. Pink if you want it to kind of glow like that. But so now you can see, since I didn't blend it in, it's definitely stayed a lot more distinct, and that's what I want. And just to be aware of your paper, because you know, especially since we're using construction paper versus nice pastel, soft pastel paper that has a tooth, your construction paper can get tired, you know, sooner, you know, so just, you don't want it to pill too much. So just be aware of that. But, you know, and then as some of your final touches, depending on what color flowers you want to do, kind of want to add some more short grass in here. And, you know, you can kind of go in and just do like little bits of color just randomly, you know, and you can kind of tap it a little bit. I already have some color underneath, but that's okay. You know, you want to add more. And then I added some purples, you know, along here. And you can just kind of go in and add little bits more of color and white and make it more distinct if you want to have kind of like little shapes of pink in there like that. And you know, so you can kind of do it kind of like it's fanning out, but you're still just doing really non-distinct, you know, flower shapes, but you're adding in this nice bit of color, just a little pop of color. And you can go in and add a few reds, you know, for a little real nice bright. But so here again, you know, you're adding these nice little bright contrasts. But you know, this, you don't have to go, oh, it has to be in a specific spot. Just kind of put some in and see what you think. And then if you go, oh, I don't really like that one, or you can't really see that because I move the paper, then just tap it, and just, you can tap it a little bit, so then it kind of tones it down a hair, but you're not totally smudging it out. And then, you know, if you think some stuff has a little bit too much distinctness in the background, then kind of gently tap it. So, but you get the idea, and you can totally do this. This just takes a little, you know, it just takes time. And this is a nice learning process. So I'm looking to add some other little colors in here, because, you know, wildflowers come in every little color. So, okay, just keep, whoop. All right, but you get the idea. So now the main thing is just have fun and enjoy, embrace the mess. You can totally do it, and just have fun, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. All right, everyone, we'll see you next time. And just a quick PS, and most of you may already know this, you know, on the soft pastels, you want to set it You want to kind of shake it off to get the excess of your pastels off, but then use a workable fixative to spray it to keep the pastel from moving. Now, hairspray does work. You want to make sure it's an aerosol and not a pump, and test it on something else first, because sometimes it will just, spray in globs, and then that will mess up your piece. So you don't want to do it. But yeah, a workable fixative or an aerosol light coat of hairspray will help set your pastels, though it will still smudge, so you don't want to run your hand across it, but that will keep it mostly in place. All right, so see you next time.